Can you hear me or no?
I can hear you, and I think we're live. So
Never mind. I can't do. Okay, you can hear me. All right. Now, do I have to read the verse just so I know? Do I need to keep it up here?
you can save it. And so we are live now.
Oh,
So
hi,
we are
everybody.
live, everybody. We are using a new platform for me, which is StreamYard. I've only used it a few times. And I have a friend and a coach of mine, Monique Manigault, with me today. And I love, God calls us sometimes to do things. I've been sharing about how he has kind of put me in a place of being uncomfortable and to do different things and to be obedient quickly when I hear something and to listen. And so last week, Monique and I were talking about just how I can become more visible on social media, but also how I can let more people know about my events because with COVID, we've shifted, right? And so we were just kind of chatting. And one of the things is because I help people with their God-sized goals, we were just talking about how I should have people share their testimony and just how they use God in their business and just really to do more inspirational videos. So you guys who are here, I know we've got a few people on already. I want to say thank you for being here, but you are here first because I said, sounds great, Monique. How about I interview you next week? And she said, sure. And so then we kind of finished our conversation. And then I was looking and she's like, what are you looking at? And I said, I'm looking at my calendar because let's get you scheduled. So Monique, thank you so much, first of all, for saying yes. Thank you for saying yes.
Of course. And thank you for having me. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited just to see where this goes and to hear more of your story today. So where are you at in the world? Let's start there.
Yeah, so right now I'm in South Florida. I'm in South Florida. And it's so funny to hear you say that because normally pre-COVID, everyone would ask me that when they speak to me because I could be anywhere in the world. And one of my favorite places to be is on the other side of the world in Asia. And I've spent a lot of time there living between there and here in the US. But since COVID, I've been in America and I've really been stationary. So you even asking me that sounds a little weird right now because I probably haven't heard someone ask me that in almost a year. So interesting.
Yeah. And before we even get going, if my friend Fatma's watching, I want to say hi because I'll share with you just a quick little story before we have you start doing that. When I was talking to you this summer, I remember I was telling you about how I have the different clocks in my office right. So I have different clocks for the different time zones. And she was like, well, why not around the world? Like you need to be around the world. So one of my buddies, my accountability partners, Fatma is in Turkey. And so I had my daughter help me with my clocks the other day. And so one of them is set for Turkey. And I sent the picture to her and she's like, we are such soul sisters. And I was like, yes, because I have to know what time it is for her in Turkey as well. So anyhow, I've got that done, but it was really fun. So
and send me a picture too. I want to see, what are the other cities you have listed?
Well, we have Berlin, but we have it spelled with a Y because my daughter's name is Berlin. She's like, let's put it with a Y. So we have Berlin with a Y because we've got family in Germany. We have New York, right? Because we want to go to New York someday. And then the other clock is Hawaii. The other clock is Hawaii because that is actually the place that I would love to take my children one day to watch a sunset. So not only is it different time clocks in the world of places we're connected, but also kind of a vision board of where we want to be so we can know like what time is it right now if we were there.
Absolutely beautiful. Please send me a picture. Please send me a picture.
I will.
Beautiful.
Okay, so let's get going. What is it? Why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do before we get going?
Yes. So I'm an attorney by profession. I've been a New York lawyer for almost 20 years now, but I spend most of my days working in my personal development company, working with entrepreneurs growing at top speed and with individuals on growing their lives at top speed. So that's what the majority of my time is spent doing.
So I met Monique about 2 years ago. We were in a mastermind intensive. And anyhow, so I was telling her about the God-sized goals and we were talking about this. But I kind of want to get to what today's really about. And that is about just some inspiration for you guys. She is a wealth of knowledge. She will bless you. Make sure I'll put the links below. Go follow her. Make sure you connect with her. If you want to up level your life, your business, you want to get seen more on social media, go do that. But today, right now, I'm going to tell you, it's really about me being obedient and saying, let's talk a little bit more about God. Let's talk about how did God become a part of your life, Monique? So can you share that with us?
Yes, yes. And when we talked about doing this today, you and I had a brief conversation about that. Because for me, oftentimes people talk about when they're giving their testimony, how long they felt connected to God, or they've had some aha moment or something like that. But the reality for me is that I've never felt disconnected from God. I literally came here connected to God, and nothing about that has ever shifted.
And that's, and for some people, that's really true. Like our parents introduced that to us, or that's just how we were raised and kind of grew up. So that is what we have known. Right. And so I remember, my grandma was one that used to take me to church kind of thing. So that's really awesome. Okay. So tell me, since you've not really been disconnected, yes, how do you stay connected in that sense for somebody maybe who doesn't know that feeling? Right. Or like maybe at times has felt disconnected. How do you stay connected and grounded?
Yeah. So I think a big part of it for me is just internal listening. Mm-hmm. And I have always been connected to the inner parts of me that I think that God speaks to directly. And I've allowed it to lead me and to guide me into the areas that I have gone in life. And I've used it to not only give examples to what I do, but how I do the things that I do. And I think that, if there was ever an autopsy done on my life, mm-hmm, that the signs of God are everywhere. Mm-hmm. The signs are everywhere.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yeah.
So I really love that. So what would be one sign of God that you would share with us that you like, if they were to do that autopsy? That's such a great visual, right? Like, what would be one that you would think that would stand out?
I think one that would stand out would be my level of inspiration that I provide to people. Mm-hmm. So, I grew up in New York. I'm a New York baby. I grew up from inside of Manhattan, and then about 7 miles out in northern New Jersey. That's been those are the two locations of my main residence my entire life, my entire 50 years of living. And it has provided amazing perspective in lots of ways. And growing up, one of my favorite things to do was to talk to people on the street. And I come from a family of entrepreneurs. One of my family business growing up were restaurants, Chinese restaurants to be exact. And at that time in Midtown, in the Times Square area, it just wasn't the best environment. Now when people visit New York City, Times Square is like this fabulous location that everybody wants to be. My office is just a couple of blocks away. But back then, years ago, it was a little seedy and it just wasn't the best environment. And so imagine your 13-year-old, 12-year-old, 14, 15-year-old on the streets just talking to people. And many of the people that I would be talking to were clearly, involved in criminal activity out on the street. And they would look for me, and that's where I would be. Mm-hmm. And I would speak to them, and I desired to have so much conversation with them was because I knew that there was something I needed to learn from them. Mm-hmm. I knew that obviously their perspective and their life situations and circumstances was very different than mine. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I had something to offer, but I also had something to receive. And I think that is really a great example of a piece of God in me. My ability to connect and talk to anyone at any time.
And what a gift that is, right? What a gift at a young age. I think that you learned that. And I think you do that so much in your life now. Like just when you talk, you're an encourager, but you share stories. You are very relatable to people. But here's a story that's coming to my mind that's in the Bible as you share that. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like when like I can see your parents saying like, where's Monique? Where's Monique at? Right. And it's kind of like what Jesus's parents said was like, where's Jesus at? And he was like, I was about my business. I was doing God's work. Right. So I think at a young age, you were about your work. You were about making people feel loved, about making people feel valuable, about recognizing and seeing people and giving them hope.
Yes.
So I just love that. I love that.
Yes.
This kind of makes me smile. Like, you know, there's so many things I think that where we look, we can see, just like what you're saying, we can see where there's something that's shown up. So there's one, I remember you telling me, and I think that this will really encourage people because you are a wise businesswoman and you do a lot and you've traveled a lot and you've seen the world. And I always feel like there's people when we connect with people, or, you know, we can be in rooms, you guys, with people, and we really don't know who's in the room with us. And if we, there was something unique about you that I remember when I saw you, I was just like, I like her and I want to get to know you. Right. And so we had that opportunity to talk. But I also think that you shared with me about how you did the speaking tour. Right. And I think that we can always learn from other people by what they did. So I was wondering if you could share with us about that speaking tour you did, because basically what I was going to ask you is, how do you put God in your business? But I know this is a really amazing story of how God showed up in your business that I saw. So I was wondering if you would share that story with us.
Of course. Yes. So, but for COVID, I would be out in the world on tour, and I would be teaching entrepreneurs how to grow their business at top speed. And then within the last year or so, we've introduced our other program, Leverage Up Your Life Tour. So we would run both of them wherever I was in the world. And I believe the story that you're talking about has to do with the price tag, right? Is it the price? Yeah, the price tag. Yeah. So I decided to do this tour, and I knew that it was important to feed information to the masses. And the reason I knew that, because, you know, as a lawyer, I understand, and just as a part of society, that information is powerful, and applied information is certainly the highest level of it. Mm-hmm. And so I needed to reach as many people as possible. And of course, online is great and terrific, but there is nothing like being in the room with people and your people. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to go out on tour years ago. But I have had the wonderful blessing of having lots of different people help us work on our business and to grow our business. And I had some people who are consultants of ours basically tell me that I needed to charge a certain amount for the tour, that I needed to charge, I think it may have started maybe about $500, that I should charge that amount for people who wanted to attend. And it's a half-day event. And I wasn't comfortable with it. My spirit told me that that wasn't supposed to be a part of this. Now, I'm a business owner, for profit, not non-for-profit. So I understand the importance of profit and being able to create profit. But I believe it's also important to know when and where certain things should apply. For me, the Revenue Revolution Tour was not one of those places. I knew that if I put a $500 ticket on there, there was going to be a lot of people who were going to be left out. So they kept coming back to me. Okay, well, let's take it down a little bit. How about we take it to $397? And I would say, yeah, no, that's okay. I don't want to charge anything for it. Well, that's not really popular in this industry, right? It's just not.
No.
At all. And so, but that's where I came from. That's the world that I came from. As a lawyer, I used free talks to grow my business. As a real estate broker, I used free talks. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs where people would fill my living room on the weekends, and my parents would bring in financial experts to teach them how to grow their money on Wall Street. My parents would teach how to grow their money in real estate. And it was all free. And so now I stepped into this industry, which I knew was part of my divine blessing, right? For me to come to this side. But what was being suggested to me just didn't fit. It just didn't feel right. It didn't feel authentic for me. So then we went down to, I think, $297. No. Then $197, then $97. And the reality is there were valid reasons to charge that amount, right? And, certainly what you get in the room that day is tremendous. And I could have charged any of those things very easily. But I knew that wasn't its purpose. Its purpose was far greater than that. And when I think about the people that we have touched around the world at zero, right? At zero admission. I know that so many of those people would have never been able to receive that information, but for that. Mm-hmm. So when they said $97, they said, look, Monique, $97. And then, they said, we need to know how many people are going to be there. We need to know what room to get. We need to be able to know all these things, which was absolutely correct. I just knew that someone would be left behind. Then $47. And then the last number was $19. And we got to $19. They said, look, because I guess they were sick of me. $19. When they come, Monique, you can give them the $20 back. Give them the $19 back. Totally free. Zero. But at least we can have an idea of how many people to set up for. And I said, if it was that simple, I would. But what I know for sure is that there will be some people that don't have $19 for me to borrow to give back. And I won't leave anybody behind. And that was God in me. Mm-hmm. That was God telling me, doesn't matter what they say. This is your orders. Go do it. Go do your work. Mm-hmm. And that's what I do. Yeah.
And I think it really is sometimes that much of walking by faith, and that there will be a lot of people questioning you. And, I think when God gives us a vision, when he gives us that, sometimes that God-sized goal or that thing we don't really know how it's going to happen, he's going to equip you. He will open doors that we do not know. We will have divine appointments. And I love that, because that really opened some big doors for you as well, because you were obedient to that, right?
Right. Absolutely. And the door I'm sure you're referring to is my television show. Mm-hmm. So as a result of the tour, actually, someone that I've known for many years saw me in Chicago, and he knows what I do. He knows about my work, but it's very different knowing about something or something related to someone and watching them. Mm-hmm. Extraordinarily different. And so he came and he saw me in Chicago, and he said, "This is phenomenal. I need to be a part of it. I need to help this grow. I need to be a part of what you're doing in the world." And he said, there's a new show coming on, and they are looking for amazing women who are doing great work in the world to feature. It was just starting. He said, I want to recommend you for the show. I want you to be one of the women that they feature. And so I said, okay, sure. Sound fine. And then I was one of the women that was featured in the debut show. I was one of the women selected. So the producer came to New York City to interview me. My office is in Times Square. And he came. And what was so interesting about this interview, which was unlike any other interview that I have experienced thus far, is that they interviewed people in my life, which was so weird. It was almost like This Is Your Life. Because they interviewed me extensively, but then they also interviewed my parents. They interviewed my music producer. I'm a recording artist. They interviewed one of my clients, my legal and business clients. So it was like so odd. And through my interview, of course, the producer learned about me, found out about me, found out that what he knew about me was really just a surface of my life. Discovered that I had become a New York attorney, but only after being academically suspended from college, not once, but twice. Being told essentially that I shouldn't even go to college.
Yeah.
Right. And being able to live that experience, but knowing that there was something far greater destined for my life.
Yes.
And that no man could extinguish that. And so he got to look at my soul. And about 2 weeks later, after the interview, he said, Monique, we've been thinking about some things. And you exemplify the woman that we want to feature in this show.
Mm.
Would you please come on board and be a part of this show? So I'm happy to say I am now a producer of the show. Mm-hmm. And I'm on air for the show as well. And it has been a phenomenal ride.
Yeah. Well, we'll make sure. So tell everybody what the show is so they can find you.
So the show is Women on the Move. It is syndicated across the country. So it's on all the major networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, CW, Fox, everything. And we also are going to be featuring it online. It's not online yet, but it will be coming on the next couple of months. I want to share something about the networks, because I know that this is closely related and connected to God. So before the show, I had done an interview with NBC. And I did an NBC morning show promoting the tour. And it was a wonderful interview. And they were redesigning my website. And, oftentimes we'll put logos for the different shows or papers or whatever we've been featured in. And I remember when we got the NBC and then the NBC network logo went up. And we were thinking about, the other networks, and they said, oh, when you're on ABC, we'll put this one up. And when you're on CBS, we'll put that one up. And then when I got the television show, all of the networks were reflected as part of that. And the reason I say I know it's God is because obviously we could have gone after those interviews. We could have, been booked. We could have done all of that. Mm-hmm. But part of the divine ordering was that me following my obedience, I certainly believe that the show is the blessing in my obedience. Mm-hmm. And the fact that it shows on all the networks across the country mm-hmm. is just the cherry on the top of it all.
Yeah. And I think it's so beautiful because even as you share that, I didn't even know all of that. Right. Yeah. So I'm I got some goosebumps, as you're telling them, oh, that's so powerful. Right. If it's for nobody, it inspires me, but I hope people who are watching this gets inspired to know that, I was sharing last week that, when there is something small or big, we have to listen to that small voice in us. We have to, and sometimes it's just a small thing that says, no, do it this way. But other times it's a big thing, kind of like that price tag where you got to play big by faith, right? And just be I know that this is what God is calling me to do and I need to do it. And it opens up other doors for other people to be a part of what you're doing or to just simply hear what you're doing. And so I want to thank you for doing that. I want to thank you for boldly listening to God's voice and his call on your life and sharing your story, right? There's so many neat things about that. And, maybe you can relate, to something that you're doing in your life, right? That's been, sure. But I always believe in giving God the glory for that. And when we do, I believe more of him gets glorified, but I think we get the opportunity to do more. And such a cool example, I would say of that, of how that played out in your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the reason I love to share that, because when I do my masterclass, I share the story of the tour mm-hmm. because I think that not enough people follow that voice. Mm-hmm. When they're spoken to, they don't allow it to lead them because of fear. And I use it as an example, that many times in life, you're going to be walking alone. I have a wonderful quote. I walk best when I walk alone. And what I mean by that is not alone without God, but alone without man. Mm-hmm. Because I believe that man can lead you astray a lot of times.
Mhm.
because of their own fears, insecurities, gaps, you know, all sorts of things. But when you walk with God, even if it's alone, you will feel stronger than as if you had an army with you.
Mhm.
And so I have always been tapped into that source throughout the course of my life. There's so many examples, even when I was very young, where I would do things that many would be fearful of. But because I knew that I was led and guided by God, there was no fear in me. You know, as a business owner, I have experienced tremendous hardships. I survived the Great Recession as a business owner, as a home builder, as an investor, as a broker, as a real estate lawyer. And I financially took tremendous hits during that time. But I knew that it was part of the greater story.
Mhm.
And in so many ways, for so many people, it makes me more relatable to people, right? Than never having any financial hardships ever before in my life. Big difference, big
Mhm.
difference. And not only that, but the ability to come out of tremendous debt, 7 figures worth of debt, and still be here to tell the story, right? And how I was able to not only, you know, recreate myself anew, but how the blessing of that so-called disaster created this amazing leverage up brand, which would have never been born but for the depths of the recession that has now catapulted me all the way to television.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just think it's so powerful. And I think what's on my heart right now is I always feel like we always need to like who's the one person who we can like look up to and learn something from, but also who is the other person like that maybe may not be where we're at that we can share something with. And
Yes.
so that's kind of what's on my heart right now. Like there's so much wisdom in what you have been sharing with us today. And so I want anybody who's listening to this to think about that. Like, who is somebody who can be inspired by Monique's story? Or who is somebody who has a story that needs to be told that really honors God, right? Like, because that's what I'm about is really like honoring God, giving him the glory, but then also, sharing that hope and love to other people, but bringing on, I like to put God in the foundation of what we do because we can help more people with what we have. So you are a great example, Monique, about how you have put God in your business, right? And how you've listened to that voice and how you've helped a lot of people. So I want to encourage people to kind of think about that today. Like, who needs to hear Monique's story? Because that's a real easy give that you can just share this video and you can like send it and say, hey, listen to this. This lady has an amazing story, right? Maybe, what Monique does is needs what Monique does, right? Maybe they need to leverage up their business or, go check out her TV show. I mean, I think that's so cool. Like just that whole piece on that. I'm so honored to have you be here and be on my little stage. But, I think the other part is, you guys, is to pay attention to more than anything when you are in a room, whether that be in person or whether you're in a room with on Facebook. I always kind of look like when I'm in a Zoom room or something, or when something catches my eye, I always write it down. Like, God, who is it? How is it that you want me to connect with that person? And so there was something unique about Monique when I met her that was like, you need to know her. And you have really just blessed my life, Monique. You are a beautiful person. I want to thank you so much. I want to thank you for sharing your story today and doing that. So there's one thing that I always ask people when I'm interviewing them or chit-chatting with them, because I think the Bible is so powerful and it just speaks life to us. Is there a verse in the Bible that encourages you or that you like always kind of like lean on or that you can share with us today?
Yes, absolutely. So I have many of them. I have many, many, many. But the one I chose for today is Jeremiah 29:11. 29:11. And I'll just read it for you. For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. And I always just go back to that because, in this life, we can all be discouraged and we can all get tired and sometimes weary. And when I think about the fact that my life has been divinely ordered, it makes everything that much easier because I know there's a purpose for every piece of it, just as I shared with you about the recession and, all the fallout from that. Knowing now, I mean, obviously having 10 years later, looking back on it, knowing that, but for that, Leverage Up could have never been born, right? The purpose was far greater than any of the challenge that it could have caused me. And so I think that those are just great words to live by and to reflect on.
Yeah. Well, well, thank you. I appreciate your time, and I thank you, everybody, for joining us. And
can I say something?
Yes, please.
Yeah. I just want to thank you so much. And I mean, I have been such a great fan of your God-size goals and your platform and all the work that you do. Thank you for always showing me love and kindness. Always. I remember when we first met, you stayed and talked to me for like a long time after our meeting. And there's always been a connection there. And I want to thank you for your courage in even saying yes to this last week, because you didn't have to say yes, but you said yes. And so I want to thank you for that, because you will be a blessing with this platform, this new platform that you're creating through Tuesday's Testimony.
Yeah. Well, thank you. All right. You can have a blessed week. Share it, right? If you have a testimony, I need testimonies. So I'm going to say, hit me up in my inbox, because I want to hear them. I want to get your message out, but also mainly to give God glory. So thank you so much, Monique. We'll put her information so that you can connect with her, give her some love, and have a blessed week.
Thank you.